Place I'm going right now. It's a bad place.
Those mics are on.
We haven't moved yet. Closing was essentially uneventful. Basically, we're having it clean through. Basically, clean through inside. Kath, you're gonna do this.
Yeah. Thanks.
While the outside is
Let Jamie know that chair somehow feels lower than this chair. And since you are taller than me, I always move the chair. You got it. That's exactly what it is doing. Now, why am I looking for money? Why do I think that?
Who's they? Because our realtors have it.
Why did we make it so small?
So we're actually, Joe, we're probably on the 15th of November. And we got enough time to get everything tanked up.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 21st meeting of the Township Committee. I'm going to ask you to rise and join us in a salute to the flag. At the end, we'd ask for a moment of silence for retired Fire Captain Joseph Newsom. He was a firefighter 31 years from 1967 to 1998. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence for Captain Joseph Newsom. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2014 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2013, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier? Mrs. Leventhal? Here. Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provisions of this Act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier? Yes. Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome again to our October 21st meeting. This evening we have two proclamations, one for Domestic Violence Awareness Month and the other for Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. After that, we'll have our first public comment period, and we'll invite anyone who'd like to speak to the Township Committee to come up at that time. And that's when the coalition should be coming up during that first one. We have one ordinance on final passage, and that is prohibiting a right turn on Villa Terrace. And then we have introduction.
That's not right.
I'm sorry, that's not right.
You're looking at the wrong agenda.
October 21st. Wrong. That's not what we're doing. We're doing an ordinance to repair motor vehicles within the
Yes.
public right-of-way. Ah, thank you. Okay. I'm looking at the old agenda.
Oh,
Okay. And then we are introducing an ordinance, the trap neuter release. and it's a pilot program, and you'll be hearing more about that later. We have one discussion item. We'll be talking about merchant parking. And then we have our consent agenda, in which we have 5 items. One is additional funding for our consultant for affordable housing, community grants, planning, and housing. And 2 is a budget change, 3 is bills and claims, and 4 and 5 are approval of minutes. So with that, we're going to start, and Deputy Mayor Leventhal is going to do the Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
I'd like to ask Sandra Bartlett, our welfare director, to please come up. Sandra is not just a welfare director, she also coordinates with the domestic violence crisis intervention team the activities and the work that they do with victims that when they are called by the police to help intervene. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a time to remind everyone that domestic violence can be stopped, and domestic violence can happen to anyone of any age, sexual orientation, race, religion, or gender, and whereas 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime, and whereas women between the ages of 20 and 24 are at greater risk of non-fatal violence, and whereas only 25% of offenses are reported, and whereas in New Jersey, 31% of reported cases involve children, and whereas domestic violence is rarely an isolated event, but rather a pattern of behavior to control an intimate partner, and whereas domestic violence also refers to abuse against men and boys in an intimate relationship such as marriage, cohabitation, dating, and within a family. And whereas intimate partner violence against men is generally less recognized by society, which can stop men from reporting their situations. And whereas with proper mental health treatment and support, survivors of domestic violence, both victims and their children, can and do recover and build healthy, happy lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, on behalf of the Township Committee, does hereby proclaim October 2014 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and in the Township of Maplewood, and in so affirms the continuing commitment of the Township of Maplewood to advocate for the rights of all victims of domestic violence and encourage all citizens to recognize and participate in the programs to work toward improving victim safety and holding perpetrators of domestic violence accountable for their actions against individual victims and our society as a whole.
Thank you.
I'd like to present this to you. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. I'm accepting this proclamation for the Maplewood South Orange Domestic Response Team. No members are present here tonight because their identity is confidential. I did come with a suggestion from the team that their information be placed on the Maplewood website. So if someone needs some information, it will be there. Domestic violence, it thrives on silence, and the color purple is worn during the month to make a statement that domestic violence should end, and it's very important. The piece I will read is a result of the tragic consequences of domestic violence. I got flowers today by Paulette Kelly. I got flowers today. It wasn't my birthday or any other special day. We had our first argument last night, and he said a lot of cruel things that really hurt me. I know he's sorry and didn't mean the things he said because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't our anniversary or any other special day. Last night he threw me against the wall and then started choking me. It seemed unreal, a nightmare. But you wake up from nightmares. And I woke up this morning sore and bruised, but I know he's sorry because he gave me flowers today. I got flowers today, and it wasn't Valentine's Day or any other special day. Last night he beat me and threatened to kill me. Makeup and long sleeves won't hide the cuts and bruises this time. I couldn't go to work today. I couldn't face anyone, but I know he's sorry because he gave me flowers today. I got flowers today, and it wasn't Mother's Day or any other special day. Last night he beat me again, and it was much worse than the other times. If I leave him, what will I do? How will I take care of my children? What about money? I'm afraid of him, but I'm too scared and dependent to leave him. But he must be sorry because he gave me flowers today. Today was a special day. It was my funeral. Last night he killed me. He beat me to death. If only I had gathered enough courage and strength to leave him, I would not have gotten flowers today. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Michael Weinstein to come up. And we normally do a proclamation in November for Pancreatic Cancer Month, but Michael couldn't be here in November, so we moved it up because it is an important proclamation that we make every year. And for me, it's very personal because 4 years and 1 month, they took a tumor out of or off of my pancreas. Non-cancerous, but out of the same concerns and illness and repercussions I went through, and it's just a horrible, horrible experience. So we are declaring November to be Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the Township of Maplewood. And whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,000 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 39 or almost 40,000 will die from the disease. It's one of the deadliest cancers, fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States. Pancreatic cancer is only a 5-year survival rate. When you get the symptoms and you feel fine until you don't, and you never know. And when you get those symptoms, it's generally too late, and 73% of the people who show those symptoms or are diagnosed with it will die in the first year, and 94% will die within 5 years. And I'm standing with someone who beat the odds. In New Jersey in 2014, there'll be about 1,200 deaths of pancreatic cancer. The good news is that there was a bill signed in 2013 which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework and strategic plan for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers. And there's also the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which is a national organization that serves the pancreatic cancer community here in Maplewood and nationwide. And it includes public policy work, research, funding, patient services, and public awareness and education. And essentially what we want to do is to continue to lift this up as a disease that needs more attention by the government and those who care about trying to solve the deadly form of cancer that it is. So I am declaring in the Township of Maplewood the month of November 2014 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the Township of Maplewood. And I want to thank Michael for bringing this to us every year, for checking in, for showing us that he's still strong, giving us inspiration, and we wish you the best and want to see you year after year after year here. So Michael, why don't you say what you'd like to?
Thank you. Mayor DeLuca, I'd like to thank you once again for this proclamation on behalf of the New Jersey affiliates of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. My involvement started 2 days after Thanksgiving in 2005 when I went into the emergency room with an unrelated problem in the stomach, and I took a scan and they came back and said, oh, and by the way, you also have a tumor in your pancreas. The statistics then, as they are now, are not reassuring. A 5-year survival rate of only 6%, the only major cancer in single digits. 50% pass away within the first 6 months, and as you heard, 73 to 74% within the first year of diagnosis. One of the problems is it's not getting any better. It's projected by the year 2020 that the cancer deaths in America will rise from being the 4th leading cause of cancer death to the 2nd cause of cancer death. Funding is very minimal. The National Cancer Institute only uses 2% of their annual budget for pancreatic cancer, and a bigger problem is that funding, that overall funding, keeps getting cut by Congress through sequestration, through budget cuts, and in conjunction with that, medical research, inflation rises at a much quicker rate than regular inflation, causing real dollars to keep decreasing for all medical research, which is unacceptable, and we should all be upset by this statistic in this area. And so I urge all of you to go to www.pancan.org to learn more about our organization and also to see how you can help out, and if anyone is in need of services, they are provided by this wonderful organization. So the first step in changing the culture out there is through public awareness, and this is what we're doing here tonight in the Township of Maplewood. And so again, thank you to the committee and Mayor DeLuca for this proclamation, and for all of you for being here tonight. Thank you.
I'm working out a title, but I'll do it. Okay.
I don't know how you got that one.
Okay. We're now going to invite members of the public, if they'd like to come up and speak to the Township Committee. We ask you to take the microphone, and anybody bearing a check would be the first person up here. Yes? And if anyone would like to start that, if you'd like to make checks payable in those 6 figures, you can be next. This is to the Township of Maplewood.
Yes. I'm delighted to be here this evening. I'm always delighted to be here, but I'm Deborah Collins, for the record, Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for the great County of Essex, and it is my privilege and honor to present to the Township of Maplewood a check in the amount of a replica of a check in the amount of $150,000 from our Essex County Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund for use in connection with improvements to Northern Park. What a pleasure. So I shall leave this with the clerk, of course. In fact, the county has made such grants to all 22 of its municipalities, and we're just very pleased to do so. That's the first announcement. No more money, but on to fun stuff. On Friday, October 24th, from 6 to 9 p.m., in the Essex County Presby Memorial Iris Gardens, 474 Upper Mountain Avenue in Montclair, the county executive, the Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, and the Citizens Committee of the Essex County Presby Memorial Iris Gardens invite you to Gardens Aglow, artfully carved pumpkins on display during the harvest season. So that's Friday, October 24th, 6 to 9 p.m. It should be beautiful. On Saturday, October 25th, one of our most popular events, Strut Your Mutt. Yes, the Essex County Brookdale Dog Park at Grove Street in Montclair. Free entry, registration 9:15, parade at 10 a.m. That's the Essex County South Mountain Dog Park, Crest Drive, Maplewood, and Milburn. Registration from 1:15 p.m., parade at 2 p.m. We hope to see you and your mutts. On Friday, Halloween, October 31st, the Board of Chosen Freeholders, County Executive, invite you to the Essex County South Mountain Recreation Complex for 25 candy stations available for trick or treating. Come in your Halloween costume and bring a bag. It's $3 for Zoological Society members and $5 for general admission. No reservations necessary. And this concludes our announcements for the evening. Are there any questions, concerns, or other issues you'd like to raise at this time?
Anyone have any questions? When you give that check to Ms. Fritzen, make sure you get a receipt.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing us the good news.
My pleasure.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor DeLuca and colleagues. I come before you as the acting chair of the Community Coalition on Race. I don't look like Fred. I've got a little different color hair, but I am here in his place. And I am pleased
Why don't you say your name just for the record?
Oh, yes, Leila Gonzalez Sullivan. And what I would like to do is read for you a resolution that the coalition passed at our September meeting. And then I'd like to invite Nancy Gagne, our executive director, to make some additional comments. Be it resolved that the South Orange Maplewood Community Coalition on Race, that the events which occurred in Ferguson, Missouri in August of 2014 have been deeply troubling to all people of goodwill in this country. The South Orange Maplewood Community Coalition on Race finds these events to be particularly disturbing because they represent precisely the type of racial injustice that we find to be enormously offensive and which we have fought so hard to counter since the time of our inception. Because Maplewood and South Orange are communities which aspire to be places, where the events in Ferguson would never occur, the coalition requests that the South Orange Board of Trustees and the Maplewood Township Committee adopt resolutions which condemn, first, the repugnant killing of an unarmed black male teenager, and second, the militaristic overreaction of the Ferguson police force to the public protest in violation of the Constitution's First Amendment guarantees.
Red Profeta sends his regrets that he can't be here tonight. The resolution was motivated by him, and he wrote it, he sort of modeled it on resolutions that he's familiar with that have been passed in the past by this body. I know there were some questions about why now, why Ferguson, so I'll just address that, and then if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to address them. So the trustees of the Coalition on Race have considered specific responses to incidents in other communities. Oh, I'm Nancy Gagne, the executive director. I forgot to say that. So we've addressed these other incidents in other communities across the nation that involved individual or community practices like racial profiling in the Trayvon Martin case, Jordan Davis, Oscar Grant, just to name a few of the very unfortunate tragedies that have given rise to national responses to things like racial profiling, explicit and implicit bias, and broad systemic forms of racism. The conversations that we've had as a board about these specific incidents have produced ideas for forums and community conversations that are relevant really to our specific needs here in Maplewood and South Orange. And in fact, our recent conversations on race last spring, that forum was focused on implicit bias as an example. So why the specific response to the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson? It was really striking to us, the fact that Ferguson is a racially diverse but not integrated community, a community with leadership that is not racially representative, that has what some have called intentionally segregated schools by virtue of how the boundaries have been redrawn over time, and a community whose economy is almost entirely dependent on fines and tickets given by the police, and where that burden falls mostly on Black residents. We were very motivated to see comparisons between our community and Ferguson, because we're a community that knows firsthand that those situations are perils of a diverse community unless there are race-conscious strategies in place to counteract segregative forces. So what happened to Michael Brown and what happened within the community afterwards really hit home for us. We know that racial instability is a pattern for communities that experience demographic change unless there are pro-integrative strategies in place. And most communities are reactive rather than proactive on race issues. And in the case of Ferguson, the killing of Michael Brown brought these issues into painfully greater relief for the entire community. And some of those strategies, as you know, include the things that we do. And we see these strategies written about by researchers all the time, and occasionally they do cite us. In fact, in USA Today, we got to mention fair housing ordinances, fair lending practices, neighborhood associations, representative leadership in government and civic organizations, activities that support an integration culture that allow people to build relationships across racial and cultural divides, honest conversations about race, teaching and police staffs that reflect the community. And these are things that we believe that we do well in this community. I attended a panel on the root causes of Ferguson that included the Ferguson Democratic Township Committee woman, Patricia Bynes, an African-American woman who serves in a mostly white local government. And the things that she said that they need to do are the kinds of things that we're doing here. We just want to bring this to the public's, to our residents' awareness, and one of the things that she says is we're going to get the conversation about racism out there. The business community needs to address it, the politicians, we all need to address it. We believe that we're addressing it as an organization in concert with the leadership of our community. And that's the thinking behind the resolution.
Thank you. I did share the resolution and the request with my colleagues, and there was a little back and forth. We're not in a position tonight to pass anything, but I'm going to take it, some of the comments that we received, and see if we can craft something where we can come up with some agreement. It's going to take a little while, though, but I think we're aware of the feelings of the coalition and certainly understand the importance of being proactive as opposed to reactive And we have used under Mr. Brownlee's leadership at the Public Safety Committee, we've used the Ferguson incident as an opportunity for our own reflection on how we communicate with communities of color, how we might want to be better prepared in case a catastrophe happens. And so we're continuing to work on that and working with the Chief of Police, who's also very open to this, just being more prepared. Additionally, as you saw in my own comments in the CCR's journal, that I think one of the things we need to learn from this is that if there's any segment of a community that feels shut out, isolated, not part of civic life, then I think it is incumbent upon the government to create opportunities for that participation. And I think in Ferguson, as you mentioned in both of your comments, there clearly was no opportunity and there was exclusion. And I think the CCR and certainly the Township Committee is committed to having a robust civic life here and making sure we're reaching all populations in our community.
Thank you. That's exactly what we're looking for. And as Mr. Profeta wanted to make clear, and the trustees, those were words that were written, suggested sort of, not long after the riots were happening in Ferguson. And of course, you'll come up with your own language, but we just wanted to get the ball rolling on that. Can I add one other thing?
Sure.
We are, I mentioned this last Saturday, we are hosting a Two Towns, One Book event with author David Trout. His book, The Price of Paradise, really speaks to a lot of these issues, and it's very, very relevant to our community. He's a resident of Montclair. He knows a lot about this topic, a lot about diverse communities all over the country. He's very familiar with us. I think it's going to be a great event on November 19th at, I believe, at 7 p.m. At the Woodland here in Maplewood, and we invite the whole community to come out, hear him read, hear him tell the stories, read some of the book in advance. It will be available at the Ward's Bookstore, at the libraries, and then you'll have an opportunity to talk to fellow residents about these issues as well. So we're continuing the conversation.
Just on that, the disappointment is that night we're going to be in Atlantic City at the League of Municipalities meeting.
Yeah, I
So,
know. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But scheduling is hard. So
No,
we were
I
able to get
understand.
him
I
then,
understand.
so, yeah.
The week after that is Thanksgiving, so that doesn't work
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I happen to know.
We hope to have him back again.
Yeah, I know David from working on Building 1 New Jersey, and I think he'll be terrific here. I'm sorry we're going to miss him.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if my colleagues have anything they'd like to. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Maplewood. My name is Clarence Manny III. I reside in Irvington, and I actually am here. Positivity. First of all, commend your meeting. This is actually a very positive meeting. You go to a lot of city council meetings, and there's nothing but just drudgery. So it feels good to be at a positive meeting.
We just haven't gotten to that part
I know.
yet.
Stick around.
Stick around. First of all, I'd like to say I live in Irvington and I work from home. And 10 years ago, I discovered the ability to work from home. And what I do is provide families and businesses, small businesses, with identity theft and legal access through Legal Shield. And just to go over something that could affect or could help people in the community. I wasn't even going to touch on what she was talking about, but since you guys brought it up. One of the things we're finding is that a lot of these negative things that are happening could be averted if people had access to something that they never knew existed, such as legal access on the spot. I believe the year was about 97, 98. There was a young man in New York City who had been arrested, and while he was at the police station, I believe he got sodomized or something like that. So now anyway, this program had been around since the 70s, And the members in New York called in and said, what good is it to have legal access if in the middle, at midnight on a Friday night, we can't help, we can't get access to anybody. So in any case, what we now have since 1998-99 is 24-hour access in the event of an emergency, such as you're arrested or detained, served with a warrant, your children are about to be removed from your home, or any other legal emergency you could think of. Most recently, I was pulled over in Hoboken, actually in last October, for a warrant for my arrest, which I don't have. I'm a pretty good guy. But it was pretty scary when you got, you're surrounded by police and you have one officer with his gun ready to get you. But what I was able to do to change that whole situation around was I got on the phone with my law firm immediately so that I could get help. And it really doesn't matter what state I'm driving through because it's portable. So it's just something that I make aware to people because I'm finding that nobody knows this stuff exists, but it can help. We provide legal access to families and small businesses for any matter, whether it's traumatic or trivial or anywhere in between. I'm finding that right now I'm getting a lot of landlord-tenant issues. I think there's something going on. I don't know the terminology, CPI or something like that, but there's something that's going on in housing where a lot of tenants' rights are being violated and they don't know who to call. So they a lot of times come to a forum like this. But what if they actually could pick up the phone and speak to somebody that could help them in that situation? Or maybe you're a small business owner like I am, or like my buddy is who just moved. He owned Ink Picks right on over there. What street is that? Springfield Avenue. Mr. Walker, he's now down in Atlanta, Georgia. But in any case, small business owners, I just was reading in Yahoo.com, there was a small business owner in New York who was a victim of fraud, where somebody hacked into his computer system over the weekend and ran up $220,000 worth of of a phone bill. And you think they're going to give you credit for that, but unfortunately they're not. The company isn't designed to do that. But in any case, what if you could have your attorneys take care of that without costing you an arm and a leg? Identity theft is the #1 crime in the world right now, and when it happens to a person, unfortunately, most people don't know what to do. I recently sat with a young lady in East Orange where somebody went to the hospital and had an abortion in her name. They sent her the bill for 10 grand, which she cleared up, but they used up all of her health insurance. She no longer had health insurance. She couldn't use it. And they changed her MIB file, which means Medical Information Bureau. Whenever she goes to the hospital, she is now treated as a diabetic, even though she doesn't have diabetes. Now, when these things happen to you, whether you're a small business owner, such as myself, or you're just a regular guy, what do? Well, that's where we come into play. We're able to assist people, actually fix it for them so that they don't have to do it themselves, to be honest with you. We've been doing a free orientation, just like to let everybody know. It's thoroughly free. Come on out and see what we do, what we're about, so on and so forth. We do it in the city of Newark. There's one taking place right now, this very second. It is at 128 Frontage Road, the Doubletree Hotel. Everybody's invited. It is invitation only, so you have to see me. I am in charge of it, so that's the only way you can get there. I'm going to be around. Get a business card from me, please, and I'll take we'll exchange contact information. But that's it. Again, my name is Clarence Manny. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public comment period. There'll be another one later after our consent agenda and before we have administrative and elected official reports. So now we're going to move in ordinance on final passage. We have one.
Mr. Mayor, ordinance on final passage 2760-14. It's an ordinance to prohibit the repair of motor vehicles within the public right-of-way. This ordinance will prohibit the repair of motor vehicles within the public right-of-way except in emergent situations.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Okay, seeing no one, will close the public hearing. And Mr. Brownlee, can we get a motion?
Yes, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a past ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you very much. We have an introduction of a new ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, introduction, ordinance number 2761-14. It's an ordinance to create a pilot program to prohibit the feeding of feral cats unless properly documented and to control the proliferation of feral cats in a humane manner for the protection of health and safety of the public. This ordinance will adopt a trap, neuter, return program for feral cats within the Township of Maplewood.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes. Do you want me to make the motion or make my comments?
Motion first.
Motion first. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on November 3rd.
5th.
Wednesday, the 5th.
The 5th? Okay, the 5th. Sorry.
Second.
Okay, as the mover, you get to make the first comments.
I am very happy to introduce this ordinance. I look forward to continuing to work with Furry Hearts and with Mr. Rowe, our health officer, over the next 3 years. This is a pilot program. We will be coming up with specific benchmarks to evaluate it. In fact, I was online with the Association for the American Veterinary Medicine Association to find some specific benchmarks that they have used in studies. I will be forwarding this to Furry Hearts as well as Mr. Rowe, so we can adequately evaluate this program, and hopefully I see very good things out of this. And I would like to thank the residents of Maplewood who have been very patient and very diligent to work on this project. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
When we were first presented with the idea of a trap, neuter, and return program for wild cats, I was skeptical at best, but I've tried to listen with an open mind to what was presented and to evaluate the idea on its merits. Alas, the more that I've heard, the more my concerns have grown. At this point, my opinion is that the proponents of this program are perhaps well-meaning but misguided, and at the end of the day, if we enact this ordinance, what we will essentially have done is pass an ordinance to give a select group of residents a license to feed stray cats. I'm troubled that the organization that would be running the pilot program, when they say in their mission that their mission is to humanely reduce the homeless cat population by sterilizing as many cats as possible, and yet no one is willing to state for the record how much we might expect to reduce the number of feral cats by implementing this pilot program. And my concerns are not alleviated by promises to figure it out later, because that doesn't make sense to me, to decide to do something without knowing what that something is. We wouldn't strike a deal with the developer and then figure out the terms and conditions after the fact. Why? Because it might turn out that the conditions are such that we wouldn't have done the deal if you knew that ahead of time. Similarly, if I were to vote here to enact this ordinance and then it's decided later that one of the goals is subsequently set to be a total reduction of, let's say 1 cat or 5 cats, I think I'd be justified in saying, wait, I wouldn't have voted for this ordinance if that's all it was going to do. Sometimes we as elected officials get criticized for using language that doesn't mean anything. When I read the ordinance and it says, the review of the pilot program shall include but not be limited to effectiveness in the reduction of the number of feral cats and control of the feral cat population, cost effectiveness of the pilot program. To me, that's a lot of words that, if you think about it, doesn't really say anything and can mean different things to different people. So I've said it before and I'll repeat it here. I'm just asking that the quantifiable goals for the pilot should be stated for the record beforehand so that we all know what we're voting on. Frankly, I'm also starting to wonder if part of the reticence to have any goals stated for the record beforehand is because there are questions about whether the program will really be that effective. As an example, I believe you all received an email yesterday providing a fairly large amount of evidence questioning the effectiveness of these types of programs. You'll recall that the email begins, "There is no scientific support for the TNR, trap, neuter, return method for feral cats as a population reduction tool." The information provided also quotes the New Jersey Association of County and City Health Officials as stating that existing colonies attract new members and often become a dumping ground for unwanted pets. Many welfare, humane groups frown upon the maintenance of free-roaming cats. Although cats maintain wild traits that aid in basic survival, they are bred to be a companion to man and have no true ecological niche in nature. Not only are they susceptible to diseases and parasites, but feral cats are vulnerable to attacks by dogs and other wild animals, inconsistent food supplies, animal cruelty, and the extremes of weather. The People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, also says, although ferals are fearful of humans, they are still domesticated and ill-equipped to survive on their own. Feral cats do not die of old age. They are attacked by other animals or hit by cars, or they die of exposure. Because of the huge number of feral cats and the severe shortage of good homes, the difficulty of socialization, and the dangers lurking where most feral cats live, it may be necessary and the most compassionate choice to euthanize feral cats. If you leave them where they are, they will almost certainly die a painful death. Now again, this is a trap, neuter, and return pilot program. And again, the conclusion of that statement was if you leave them where they are, they will almost certainly die a painful death. I noted in the last monthly Board of Health report on October 6th, it was reported that 54 dead cats have been removed year to date. So by returning the cats, you're effectively consigning them to the same fate anyway. Even the Center for Disease Control says, quote, stray dogs, cats, and ferrets should be removed from the community. Local health departments and animal control officials can enforce the removal of strays more effectively if owned animals are required to have identification and are confined or kept on a leash. Stray animals should be impounded for at least 3 business days to determine whether human exposure has occurred and to give owners sufficient time to reclaim animals. And the American Veterinary Medical Association has stated that, quote, the reduction in the total number of free-roaming cats these programs will affect is insignificant. I did a little, spent about half an hour just looking around as well, and it says that in cases where a reduction has been observed, adoption has been a major component of the program. So I agree that something needs to be done, but bottom line, I'm not convinced that this is what should be done, that we should try this experiment. There are no goals. There's questionable effectiveness at best. We'd essentially be passing an ordinance to allow a select group of residents a license to feed stray cats that will likely remain a nuisance and die a painful death. And even the Center for Disease Control says that stray cats should be removed from the community. So I'll be voting against this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Ryan?
I'm going to vote yes on it on introduction because I hearken back to the original report that we got on this proposal, which seemed to have a lot of good scientifically based proofs around the efficacy of programs like this. But I'm a little concerned by all the stuff I learned from the email we got yesterday as well. And I share some of Mr. Brownlee's concerns about being clear about how this would work. However, I don't want to cut this off now, if only because I just got this email about factual arguments on the other side of the case yesterday. And a lot of work has gone into getting this ordinance together. So I think I'm going to vote for it on introduction and continue to read a little bit more deeply into some of this other information that we've gotten before I make up my mind on how the process will end for me.
Ms. Leventhal.
Well, I'm going to vote for this. I am particularly happy that we have this as a pilot project because there are different opinions. We have had other pilots, and I think that's a wisdom we have here in Maplewood, to sometimes give things a try. When I was going through the material that had been sent to us yesterday, I found that there was nothing throughout all the links that was really definitive in terms of an opinion. In fact, our own state of New Jersey Department of Health states that the solution to the free roaming and feral cat situation is multifaceted and includes, and one of the inclusions is establishing managed cat colonies in appropriate areas. I think we have looked carefully at appropriate areas. We've talked about education. We've talked about spaying and neutering, and we talk in the ordinance about rabies vaccines. So I think we have, with the help of Furry Hearts, been able to craft a pilot that gives us a humane way of approaching a difficult problem. And we'll see over the course of 3 years, but certainly even year to year, how this is moving along. I'd also just want to mention that in paragraph 5th on page 3, the date should be 2017. Just a typo.
I would only point out that it is a pilot. I would concur with Ms. Leventhal that this will be looked at. It's nothing definitive that says we're going to definitely adopt it at the end of the 3 years. That's why I'm glad it's not a year-long pilot, because this gives us an opportunity to look very carefully at it and evaluate it on its merits without feeling rushed or that we were not able to do it. I will be voting for it.
So, oh, go ahead.
I also, I'm going to beg to differ with some of Deputy Mayor Leventhal's comments. There were a number of studies which were cited, and two things that were consistently stated were that the studies that indicated that there was a reduction in the number of feral cats. In each of those cases, adoption was a component of the program, and the rate of sterilization of the cats needed to be exceedingly high and perhaps unsustainable in order to actually achieve the reduction. And even then, it was only a concert with the adoption. I'm still troubled by, again, the fact that the goals are not stated beforehand. And I'm going to maybe harken back to an earlier discussion. And I'm just going to say that unless someone can confidently say that we're expecting a fairly significant reduction in the number of feral cats as a result of this program, then all we're doing here is enacting an ordinance as a feel-good measure that doesn't really do anything and that will likely continue as long as it doesn't make things worse. We'll have enacted an ordinance to just give a select group of people the license to feed stray cats. And I would compare it to the beer garden discussion that we had, where the original reason given for wanting to have a beer garden at Maplewood stock was so that more money could be raised so that we could afford bigger acts. But when it turned out that we actually lost money, the new rationale for continuing it was changed to, well, having it didn't result in any problems, so why not just keep on doing it? And to me, that was a bait and switch. And so by not having the goal stated beforehand, I'm convinced that it's essentially going to be the same thing at the end of this. We're not going to be, it'll just continue indefinitely, because no one's going to want to, 3 years from now, regardless of the results, stop the program. It's just going to continue, regardless of how effective it is.
Well, hopefully I'll be here 3 years from now, if all goes well. When I first heard of this, I was not in favor of it, because I didn't want the stray cats that I have in my backyard returned to my backyard. And I have a neighbor that is feeding cats, and I've reported her, and she's doing it in an unsupervised way, without any kind of guidelines and without any concern for her neighbors. So I began thinking about this and listening more and reading about it, and I will have to say this. I don't disagree with some of the criticism on the upfront metrics, or the lack of it being as tight as we might think it should be. But I can tell you this, I've lived in that house for 20 years, and for 20 years, whatever we've tried with the stray cat problem has not worked. And every year, we end up with 2 sets of little kittens, beautiful little kittens in my backyard, because these cats are not neutered. I know they're not vaccinated. And so I know what did not work for 20 years, and I'm willing to go for a 3-year pilot to see if something else can work. I am not opposed to euthanizing cats, stray cats. But I'm also willing to try this program to see if there's a different way that we can resolve the problem. And I think that we have a strong community group. I think that their support is substantial in town. And with this program and the support of the Furry Hearts people, I think we might make a difference. So I'm willing to vote to introduce it and to pass it on November 5th. Anything else? Call the roll.
Well,
I'm sorry.
one question. How many programs has this organization run before? So one of the things that the ordinance says is that the organization that is doing the pilot has experience running these programs before. How many programs has this group run before?
Do we have that answer? I mean, this group just
This
formed.
group just formed.
Yeah, so I don't think they've
Under
run
the-
any programs.
Under the direction of others that have been operating in other townships.
Okay, I'm only referring back to the ordinance says that the group has experience running these programs before. So this group doesn't have that.
Okay.
So the group hasn't done it before. We have no goals.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think
what's the goal?
That's your. I think there were a set of goals that were listed in the Furry Heart manual.
Cost effectiveness.
What? I think we heard from Mr. Rowe last time he was here, and I think you were asking him some pertinent questions about it, that he can provide some information about some baseline data as to what we're spending now, what we spent before. I mean, I think you were clear that you didn't want to go back years, but I think we can at least say right now what we spent in 2014, and this is going to kick in really in 2015, so that becomes a benchmark. Well, you mentioned the 54, or how many number of cats that we picked up. We also know of cats that were brought to different shelters, and so I think we have some evidence in 2014 that we can use as a baseline and then match it against 2015. And then we can draw some conclusions from that.
Again, I just harken back to the fact that the goal is a reduction in the number of cats, and that goal has not been stated, what we expect. So that's I'm not going to convince you, but I mean, that's my objection. If the objective of the program is to reduce the number of cats, and no one can tell me what we might expect as a result of this program, I realize we may not get to that goal, but at least what's our objective? What's our goal? No one can state that. The group that's running it hasn't done it before, and there's a lot of contradictory evidence about the effectiveness of the program. Yeah, I understand we can just do a pilot, but again, if we were doing any other type of thing, I don't think that we would go for it and then figure out the metrics later on. We would do the metrics ahead of time, and then based on those metrics, we would come to a decision as to whether or not it's something we want to do, given the metrics. We don't have those metrics. So we're going to do the metrics later, but we're being asked to vote on it today.
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with you there, because on page 3 in the manual, it talks about benefits. Now, we can decide if these are goals, if these are, the basis upon which we can derive some metrics. But it talks about, there's 2, 4, 6 bullet points, smaller feral cat colonies, fewer public nuisance problems, decreased shelter euthanasia rates, lower animal control costs, improved lives for stray and feral cats. I'm not sure about that one. Increased numbers of rabies vaccination administered. I think that there's the potential of each of these to use 2014 as a base and match up 2015, 16, and 17 against these.
The point about the reduction in the number of cats, what does the word say on that?
Smaller feral cat colonies.
Smaller feral cat colonies. I would venture that if each of us were to write down our expectation for what would constitute a successful pilot program, what percentage reduction, we'd all come up with a different number.
That may be.
And so how are we all voting on the same thing?
Well, I think we may all have a agreement, those who vote in favor of it might have agreement that we're looking for smaller. I might say 10%, Ms. Leventhal might say 15%, you might say 35%. And then at some point,
and then at some point in the future, subsequent to today, we decide that the goal is 10%. Now, in my mind, I was thinking that 35% was going to be,
right,
as you said, the value. But after the fact, we decided that the goal is 10%.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't I have voted for the ordinance then?
Yeah,
and we're all in that position.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No. I mean, and that's since we're not all we all have a different thing in our head for what may constitute the success of the program, and some of us, I'm not saying I have the highest number. Maybe my number is 10% and his number is 40%. I mean, that's fine. But if we don't have a number that we're all at least voting on, we expect that this program is going to do, the organization says, because they've got experience in this, we should be able to get a 25% reduction in the number of cats. Okay, then we're all, in our heads, we're in a position to then vote on it because, you know what, if it's not at least 30%, I'm going to vote no. Maybe Jerry says if it's not 40%, I'm going to vote no. But absent some number that we're all looking at, the same number, we're all got different ideas and we're all essentially voting on something different. And so I just have an issue with that.
But suppose the numbers aren't, suppose we're not looking at the numbers that way. Suppose I'd like to see a reduction in the population. Suppose I'd like to see a reduction in the population of 20%, just to argue the point. And the program put in place gives a reduction of 10%. I might think that while that's not the 20% that I'd like to see, it's better than nothing.
That's
so
fine.
I might be willing to go along with that. I don't think that these numbers are hard and fast.
Agreed. But right now, they don't exist.
Right now, there aren't any, is your point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I would submit to you that there are probably a lot of things that we vote on that we all come at it a little bit differently and maybe have expectations, and the reasons we vote, maybe my priority is a little different than your priority, but there's enough there to continue to vote for it. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that we need to have a hard and fast number. I think actually it may be to our advantage to have some individual conception of what we think a smaller feral cat colony is. And in a year when we look at this, because it's going to be looked at every year for 3 years, then we have some debate, we have some experience, and maybe maybe it takes 12 months before we put a number out there. And then we hammer out a number we can agree on. But I think right now it's really just a guess. And I would just prefer to believe that the cat colonies are going to get smaller, maybe both in size of the colonies and in the number of colonies and in the aggregate, and see what happens in a year. Anything else?
Can I suggest a question be called?
Yeah, you can call it anything you want. Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
No.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Passes
Okay.
4-1.
So that'll be coming up for a public hearing on November 5th. We have one discussion item, and that is a request from the Village Alliance. Ms. Fritzen?
Yes, Mayor. We have a request for consideration to amend the merchant parking start time to 4 a.m. and commuter parking start time on Donnell Road to 4:30. Currently, they're both 5 a.m. We have merchants who are working in the bakery, at restaurants that start early, and basically they're parking and they're being ticketed. We have a 5:03 a.m. train to New York, and people would like to start parking at 4:30.
Now, we did lower we did
Yeah.
change from 6 to 5
Yeah.
on Donnell Road, but with a 5:03, it's virtually impossible to meet that 5 o'clock, so. I just want to share with the Township Committee the motion that was passed by the Maplewood Village Alliance Board regarding the merchant parking. What they're requesting is that there be an amendment to the merchant parking ordinance which allows merchants with both a valid business purpose and displaying a valid merchant parking permit to park in designated merchant parking zones during the overnight hours without penalty. So essentially what we're saying is, I'm not sure we can define what a valid business purpose is, but we can
I don't know that I want to get in the business of defining a valid business purpose.
I just wanted to share what the Village Alliance is asking, but I think what we want to do is just have a 4 o'clock. If you have a merchant parking permit, then you can park in a merchant parking space starting at 4 o'clock. I just wanted to share with you what the Village Alliance asked for.
And
Is everybody okay with that part of it? The Village Alliance?
the merchant parking?
Yeah.
Parking at 4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock, okay. And then the second, is everybody okay with changing the parking on Donnell Road to 4:30?
From 5 to 4:30?
Yeah.
To meet that 5:03 train.
That's the earliest train
If I had to
we
make a
have.
5:03 train, I just wouldn't go to sleep the night before.
That, I have no
Ugly
problem with
time.
that.
Okay?
I got no problem.
Okay. So, Mr. Desiderio, you make that happen? Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
I move for the approval of the items on the consent agenda?
Second?
Any discussion? Please call
Mr.
the roll.
Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, we're at our second public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee?
Hi, my name is Lisa Lurt. I live at 268 Winthrop Terrace in South Orange. I understand what you're talking about with numbers, and I know that we really can't project exactly what's going to happen. But I do know over the last 2 months, we've picked up 5 adult cats and found them homes, and we've also picked up about 15 kittens. that would be, at this point in a year from now, having babies. And just as far as that goes, we're saving the town a lot of money. It's not put on you, it's put on us. We're doing fundraisers. We already had a rummage sale. We raised $3,000. We have a huge fundraiser planned in November. We have amazing support from the town, residents of the town. So because of that, I feel like we've already saved, you know, numbers of cats, because if you think about how many kittens a cat can have, one of the cats we picked up could have reproduced, 12 in a year or more than that, and they would have had babies and babies. And the other thing we're trying to do is to take the kittens and find them homes, and then that way they won't be on the streets. So I do understand what you're saying about the numbers, but we're attacking the numbers in different ways. It's not just how big the colony is. It's also getting these kittens off the streets so they don't reproduce.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, we'll close the second public comment period. We have no reports from departments. We have administrative reports. Mr. Manning?
Two items, Mayor and Township Committee. The farmers market, which is operating on Mondays from 2 to 7, is extending itself through October and through November the 10th, Monday, November the 10th. So just encourage people to go down to Indiana, street parking lot at Indiana and Springfield Avenue, Mondays from 2 to 7, and take advantage of this resource. And secondly, it's with great pleasure that I tell you all, the public, that Mr. Eric Burbank, our DPW director, will be awarded the New Jersey Public Works Association's Public Works Director of the Year at a breakfast ceremony down in Atlantic City during the League Convention. So we're very proud of this honor that comes to our town and to Mr. Burbank. That is my report, unless there are questions.
He's watching, so I don't want to make any bad jokes.
All right.
Then by all means.
No. There's not a swimsuit competition in this, is there?
No, can only hope.
So.
I hope not. Okay. 57 Maplewood Avenue, where are we?
At 57. No. Yeah, they're right, because the bid specs for the
And do we have an idea when it's going to
when will they be back?
Once you approve it, we'll advertise next Thursday.
When are we going to receive them?
10 days, not counting Mondays or holidays.
All right, so that's next Monday is the. I don't even know what's today.
I got an email today to review them. I will review them tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. They'll then go out. I guess you have your list together to who they're going to go to. So realistically, we should probably get bids back somewhere in the first week of November.
Great.
Right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments for Mr. Manning? Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Desiderio?
Mayor, I have 3 items. First, I'm pleased to report to you that, at the last meeting, I believe it was, the governing body approved the substitute developer for the PSE&G building. It was at the last meeting. Since that time, there has been a meeting with the attorney for the redeveloper and Township's Redevelopment Council. They have reviewed the redevelopment agreement and the financial agreement. There were minimal changes that were discussed. We anticipate that within the next 2-week period, there should be a finalization of those items, and we'll have a redeveloper agreement in place, and everything will be moving forward. Excuse me. The only thing the redeveloper did mention was that they may have to go in for an amended site plan because they may want to change the mix of the number of units within it. It won't affect the size of the project, just may be more 2 families versus 1 families, et cetera. But they haven't made that final decision. But all in all, I think it's moving forward expeditiously, and I'm encouraged that we should have some.
You said
Two
two
bedrooms.
families, but you meant two bedrooms,
Two bedrooms.
right?
I'm sorry?
I thought you said two families, but you meant two bedrooms.
One bedroom versus two bedroom, I'm sorry. Okay? So.
And also just, they are meeting with the Village Alliance, I'm sorry, with the Springfield Avenue Partnership Design Review Committee to discuss some of those changes too. So they're moving ahead pretty expeditiously.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so I think we're encouraged is the answer to that. I sent to you documentation, hopefully everybody received it, on 14 Taranto Court with regard to a requested easement. This is a lot that the township owns. If you were to drive through Taranto Court and you were to go straight, you'd see the township's lot. It will then go right into the park. It has been a township lot for many years. Immediately to the left of that is a property on which there is a house, and there are actually, 14 Taranto Court, there actually are several encroachments on that property, but the owner of that property is now seeking to sell it, and I guess when he bought it, I don't know if it didn't come up or what the issue was, but the encroachment that we're specifically talking about is in the front where a portion of his building, I think it's 3 or 4 feet, encroaches into the township property. So what he is asking through his attorney is for a easement to allow that portion of the building to encroach. This will mean that the township could never, or any subsequent owner of that property, if the township were to decide to sell it in the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If the township were to decide to sell it in the future, would not have the right to force him to remove that.
Got it.
So that's the entire purpose for it. So it's approximately 6 feet by 2 feet is really what is described in the meets and bounds description. So I told them that I would bring this to your attention and that I would see whether or not you were willing to grant him that easement.
What's your recommendation?
I don't think it will affect the township's use of that property, even if it were to be sold. I would, if we were talking about the driveway, which is also an encroachment, I'd be concerned about it. If it was the fence, I would be concerned about it. But that little piece right there, I think it would, I don't think it is, and I would not be, I would not recommend against it.
Mr.
I
Field?
would not recommend against it. So getting this thing back on the market, getting this thing sold, if I understand correctly, it was once our thought that we would sell this piece of property.
This property was sold. This property was sold, okay, some years back, and the neighbors, including the gentleman who's asking for the easement, sued the town over this, and as a result of that, we had to cancel that deal and return the money to the person who bought it. We subsequently won that lawsuit, but the township never put it out for sale again. So it's just kind of been there, and it's an access to the park. I'm not even sure that it's used, frankly, by the town for any particular reason. And it may be something that you want to consider putting on the market again in the future. I think it was sold for $87,000 the last time. I'm trying to find if I can find something here specifically with regard to it. I have the file.
Well, just the question is if we agree to this easement, will that affect the sale?
No,
If we wanted to sell?
No, that little easement will not. So, but, so that's really what he's asking for, and I don't think it'll affect the market value of the property.
It's a paper street.
It's a what?
It's a paper street.
Technically, it's actually...
It's the continuation of Lombardi Place.
It's Lombardi, actually Lombardi.
If
But
you
actually,
were to
no,
go straight down Lombardi, you end up right into this lot, and theoretically, it would take you into the lot below and into Newark Way. But I think that that's not going to happen anytime, so maybe we want to have a consideration of selling it. But for this immediate matter of the easement, everyone okay moving ahead with it?
I just have a question. If we were to sell it and the new buyer,
I'm sorry?
if we were to sell it, the new buyer, would they?
They'd be bound by the easement.
They'd be bound by the easement.
Correct. That's why they're seeking an easement, so that no one in the future can tell them they have to take down that portion of the building.
The building is already built.
Built. Oh, right, okay. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Well, actually...
It's a step, isn't it? Or so-
It's like a bump out of a dining room or something like
bump
that.
out of the entire
Yeah,
two
so
floors
that's-
with a
that's-
ladder coming out of a window.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's,
Okay. Everybody okay moving ahead with this?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
All right, so I'm going to do I'll do a resolution memorializing it and giving Mr. Manning the authorization to sign the easement?
Yes.
That fire? Okay. That's number...
You want us to vote? We just shook our head. You want to think, let's get a motion, and you're going to memorialize it? Let's get a
Yeah, please.
motion. Somebody make a motion to grant the easement?
So moved.
Second. Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
And I have one more item. Similar nature. 1222 Marie Place was a development that has been completed. It's been completed for a while. There was a developer agreement that was recorded. The developer, everything is done on the project. The maintenance bond has been released as well. The developer is asking that we release the discharge the developer agreement. I've checked with the building department. I've checked with the engineering department. I've actually even checked with the finance department. There's actually a credit that they're entitled to as a result of money they put up. I see no reason why we shouldn't discharge it, so it's my recommendation, again, that we memorialize a resolution allowing for the discharge of the developer's agreement, the return of any funds that are being held, and that Mr. Manning be allowed to sign the discharge of the developer's agreement.
Your motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
That's all I
Thank
have,
you.
Mayor.
Leventhal.
Mr. Desiderio, we were corresponding about about a chapter of the municipal code, Chapter 103, about Freon, other CFCs, and halons. Being as these chemicals are no longer in production, it seems that we can do away with this ordinance. So how do we go about any
we
further
have to-
examination, or do we just,
We have to cancel it by ordinance.
okay?
That's, if you want me, we'll just cancel it. It doesn't, I would dare say there are probably other code sections that are like that as well, but if this one has been brought to your attention and you want to cancel it,
has,
I see no reason not to.
It's recommended by the environmental committee, right?
Environmental subcommittee did.
I will, with your direction, I'll do an ordinance to put it on. for
Yeah,
next
let's do
meeting.
that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have two questions for you.
Oh, sorry.
We received a correspondence from the College Hill Neighborhood Association about two clothing donation boxes
I'm sorry?
clothing donation boxes, those things you,
Yes, I understand.
that kind of appeared on Springfield Avenue. What is I know we've had conversations in the past about them. What can we do about regulating these?
I don't know the answer. off the
Okay,
top
would
of
you
my
check?
head. I will look. I know you can charge a fee. You
Yeah.
can collect revenue, because Mr. Fresalone was hot on that topic. At
Yeah,
one time.
I'm not necessarily looking to charge a
But
fee,
you want to know
but
about regulating them.
I
Okay.
mean, these are, one is placed, actually, you might be helpful with this, because one was placed on the old Maplewood tire, not the World Tire. That was just purchased for the Advanced Auto. And one was just placed there.
Without the owner's permission?
I have no idea. It's almost tipping over. It's right on the sidewalk.
Well, clearly it can't be in the public right of way.
Well, let's say it's right adjacent to the sidewalk, but it's still probably in the right of way. So,
The answer is I will definitely, I will do
Okay.
the research and I'll get you the answer, but in the meantime, it might be worthwhile for the code enforcement people to just go to the property owners and ask them if they were there with their permission.
yeah.
Because it may very well be they're not.
Well,
which
in
case-
this instance, the problem is we have There's been no recording of the deeds yet, so probably our information is that World Tire still owns it, but you know the...
I know who owns it.
You know who
I
owns
know
it,
who
right?
owns it, and
Yeah.
I'd be happy to get you that.
So maybe, yeah, you can expedite it even.
I can expedite that one,
Okay.
yes.
I'm not exactly sure about the second. We'll have to, but they're both on Springfield Avenue. I can get you the second. I'll send you the email. And the second question is, we have a group home on Union Avenue we have some difficulties with the neighbors. And I know that we have agreements with some of these group homes for in lieu payments. So you must have contacts, or are you dealing with their attorneys?
This particular one, I believe...
This is a community action for independent living
I think we
from
have
Springfield.
I think we have the direct information on this one.
Okay, so if you could get me that information, because I'll follow up with this and see if we can get some of the problems corrected.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fritzen?
Thanks, Mayor. Just some items that are coming up. Next Tuesday is the volunteer dinner, and that's Tuesday, October 28th. So if you are a volunteer on one of our boards or committees or public safety, you should have received an invitation, but if for some reason you didn't receive a hard copy or an email, that's next Tuesday at the Maplewood Community Center from 6 to 8, and you should reach out to me by email or phone. We've had our liaisons to the different boards and committees put out a second notice, and again, it should be a good time next Tuesday from 6 to 8. Okay, Election Day, November 4th, Tuesday, November 4th, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. are voting hours, and our Township Committee meeting is moved to the next day, Wednesday, November 5th. And we have Veterans Day already in the works for Tuesday, November 11th, and that's right here in this room at 11 o'clock. And it's our 11th annual Veterans Day ceremony. And then the Township Committee meeting, the second one in November, the date is Monday, November 17th.
Great. Yes.
The Public Safety Committee meeting also was moved to Monday, November 3rd. I'm trying to recall whether I sent you an email about that.
Yeah, I did your notice.
You did the notice?
Yes, you sent me an email to change it.
Yes, okay. I just want to make sure, because I didn't hear that in what you just said. Thank you.
Anything else from Ms. Fritzen? Thank you. Elected officials, Mrs. Leventhal. Ms. Leventhal.
Just to mention that I was part of a panel at Seton Hall University, sponsored by Women for International Women, and it was on women in politics. I spoke with some other elected officials last week, and there were a number of men and women there, students, and it was very well received.
Mr. Larrier.
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Ryan.
Two quick items, Mayor. You're all in receipt of a copy of some news from the State Historic Preservation Office. The Maplewood Municipal Building, here, in the Township of Maplewood, was entered into the New Jersey Register of Historic Places on the 1st of May 2014. And it was also entered into the National Register of Historic Places on October 1st, 2014. Very nice news. And the second item is, in our last meeting, I reported that we had formed a subcommittee of myself, Mr. Malavasi, and Mr. Carlson regarding a long set of proposed zoning changes that have come out of a number of different studies that we've done. I'm embarrassed at the length of the to-do list for all of us, including the length of my to-do list. I'm going to try and consolidate these into a set of memoranda to discuss with the Township Committee. There are some things that are mostly done, and the question for the Township Committee will be, should we proceed with putting these things in ordinance form? There are other things that are more Do we think this is a good idea that's worth pursuing? And I'll try and summarize that in a nice capsule form and schedule some time for discussion at the next Township Committee meeting.
Great. Mr. Brownlee.
I have no report.
I have a couple of items. One, on Monday, the Council on Affordable Housing met and voted 3-3 on a new set of rules that were mandated by the state Supreme Court, which required action by Wednesday. So 3-3 is a tie vote, a no vote. So they adjourned without any agreement to proceed. These rules would have defined each municipality's affordable housing obligation and set guidelines for developers and communities about how and where they could build. The Supreme Court gave a final deadline of November 17th to publish these rules. So is it possible that something would happen between now and November 17th? It's possible, but it's just to give you a point of information. The council is supposed to have 12 members, but it only has 6 because the governor refuses to appoint anyone. So
Why would it even have an even number? I mean, that just strikes me
that's who's
as-
left.
No, but I mean, even 12. It just-
Oh, I'm not sure about, yeah. Then the second thing I wanted to share with you is that a couple of meetings ago, I mentioned Valley National Bank was being challenged by a number of community groups in their quest to merge with a bank in Florida, Boca Raton. In any event, the Office for the Controller of the Currency, which is the regulatory body for this, has given conditional approval to Valley National Bank's acquisition of this other bank, contingent upon adhering to a plan to make more loans to low and moderate income borrowers. And the OCC, the Office for the Controller of the Currency, cited some concerns with regard to Valley National Bank's provision of products and services to low and moderate income. The bottom line is that they've agreed to make $30 million available for first-time home buyers with lower down payments, less restrictive credit underwriting requirements, and also doing a home buyer education program. So I know Citizen Action, New Jersey Citizen Action is involved in this, and since we do our banking with them, it's good to see that they are doing this. So just wanted to share that with you. Let's see, we have one item of business that we have to do right now. We are going into closed session to interview one of the development firms that we're considering for the post office project. I mentioned at the last Township Committee meeting, that we've identified 3 potential developers. We have scheduled interviews for tonight and tomorrow, and we anticipate at our November 5th meeting making a determination as who the preferred developer will be for the post office project. What that means is that we will then negotiate solely with that entity with the goal of crafting a redevelopment agreement and a sale price for that building. So we will need a motion, and Ms. Fritzen, we'll have you guide us now. We'll need a motion to go into closed.
Mr. Mayor, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, permits exclusion of the public in a meeting in certain circumstances, whereas this public body is the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood, County of Essex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion upon any action upon the herein specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter discussed as follows.
Negotiations.
It's anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, and we'll see you back here on November 5th. Thank you very much.